All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to be talking all about Bianca Censori and that Grammys appearance.
Yes.
We've got a few news articles about it and also like a little bio piece. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can kind of unpack like who she is, what the whole thing was all about.
Right.
So, I mean, just jumping right in, the outfit.
Yeah, the outfit.
Or lack thereof.
The outfit heard around the world, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not every day you see that on a red carpet, and certainly not at the Grammys.
Yeah. It's not like, someone showing up in like, casual wear or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, she was basically naked.
It was a statement.
So for those who haven't seen it, she shows up in this like big black fur coat, like full length, very glam.
Very old Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then bam.
The coat drops.
Coat drops. And she's in this totally see-through like mini dress. Or like I don't even know what to call it. It's just like
a suggestion of a dress.
Yep.
Yeah, and nothing underneath.
Nothing underneath.
And it was a deliberate like reveal too, from what I was reading. Like Kanye was like,
oh yeah,
drop it behind you and turn, or something like that.
Yeah, so this wasn't just a fashion choice.
Right.
This was a calculated, attention-grabbing moment.
Yeah, and like knowing Kanye's, history, it's definitely designed to provoke.
Yeah, it's a performance, you know?
So, I mean, beyond the shock value, is there a deeper meaning here?
Yeah.
One of the articles was talking about how it was like referencing, or I don't know, like connected to the cover art of his Vultures 1 album.
Right.
I haven't actually seen the album, like art, so.
So the cover of Vultures 1
Yeah.
Features Bianca in thigh-high boots.
Yeah.
And like just this very small scrap of see-through material. And Kanye's next to her in all black with a hockey mask on.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty intense.
Okay, so it's like very intentionally provocative.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and this visual callback, or like the way that, she's kind of dressed similarly to the album cover suggests it wasn't just like a random choice,
Right.
It was tied to his, Kanye's artistic vision.
Yeah, and he does often use shock tactics and like bold imagery.
Definitely.
So there's like a real method to the madness.
And sure.
Makes you wonder, is this just another chapter in like, his whole thing of pushing boundaries?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like he's built his entire career on that.
Right, like controversy, defying expectations, all that.
Yeah, and now with Censori by his side, it's like they're doing this together.
It's almost like they're like a performance art duo.
Yeah.
A power couple of provocation.
Yeah, but before we go too far down the Kanye rabbit hole, let's talk about Bianca Censori.
Yeah.
So who is she? Beyond this whole, headline-grabbing moment.
Well, so she is 30 years old.
Okay.
Married Kanye West, December of 2022.
Okay.
And her background's really quite interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was actually an architectural designer at Yeezy for a few years.
Wow.
Before that, she got her bachelor's and master's in architecture from the University of Melbourne.
So she's like really smart. I mean, like it's not an easy thing to do.
Not at all.
Yeah. So that architectural background is really interesting to me. I wonder if that like, plays into her fashion choices or like the way she presents herself. Like, is she seeing her body as another like, canvas for like artistic expression?
Well, I mean, there's definitely that element of construction, right?
Yeah.
Like with architecture, you're taking these raw materials and you're building something functional and beautiful.
Right.
And, maybe she's thinking of her image in the same way.
Right.
Like carefully constructing it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because, we were talking about the whole Kanye thing, like, wanting to get attention and all that.
Yeah.
But she actually has deactivated all her social media.
That's right.
So she's choosing silence over this, like, constant online commentary and stuff.
Which, in today's world, is saying something.
Yeah, right.
Like, in a world that's all about oversharing.
Yeah.
That's a very deliberate absence.
Yeah, it's a powerful statement.
It's almost like she's daring us to come to our own conclusions about her without her input.
Yeah, it's bold.
Yeah.
Especially, considering she's with Kanye.
Who thrives on all of that attention.
Right, yeah, it's like a silent rebellion almost.
It could be.
Like a way of asserting her individuality within this, like, public and chaotic partnership.
Yeah, pushing back against a Kanye-ification. In a way.
Yeah. Like she's playing this game with the media and she's like, I'm not feeding into this.
Right.
But speaking of media, what's like the general take on her Grammys appearance? Are they, like, praising her boldness or?
It's really a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Some articles celebrate her for, like, challenging norms and owning her sexuality. And they see it as, like, a feminist act, like reclaiming the female body from the male gaze.
Right, right.
But then others criticize her for being attention-seeking.
Yeah.
And say she's using shock tactics for publicity.
Yeah.
And then there's another camp that just sees this whole thing through the lens of Kanye West.
Right.
And they're arguing that Censori is, like, a pawn in his game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she's just a tool for his artistic expression.
It's interesting how people are so quick to just, like, project their own interpretation onto her.
Yeah.
Especially when she's being so intentionally silent.
Right.
It makes you wonder, like, how much agency does she truly have?
That's the question, isn't it? Like, is she a willing participant in all this?
Right.
Or is she being kind of manipulated by his, larger-than-life persona?
Yeah, and it's something that, I mean, we have to wrestle with.
Yeah.
Especially when we see, like, a woman who is seemingly, attached to, like, a powerful man who is also, a lot of people would say, controversial.
Sure.
There's a real danger of just, like, erasing her individuality.
Absolutely.
And just reducing her to Kanye West's wife.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to, like, look beyond the headlines and those easy assumptions.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually consider, like, her background and her own ambitions.
Right. She was a successful architectural designer before she even met him.
Exactly.
And that architectural background, we were talking about it before, but, like, maybe that gives us some clues about how she approaches, like, fashion and self-presentation.
Yeah.
I mean, architects are, like, by nature, builders and creators.
Yeah.
They take, like, raw materials and transform them into something functional and beautiful. And maybe she sees her body as, like, a similar kind of canvas.
Yeah, like a structure to be molded and reshaped.
Yeah, yeah.
According to her artistic vision.
And that's such an interesting way to look at it.
I think so.
Because it reframes this whole Grammys thing.
Yeah.
It's not just like a shocking stunt. It's like an act of self-expression.
Yeah, like a way of pushing those boundaries.
Right, and challenging, like, those conventional notions of beauty and stuff.
Exactly, and it ties back to that idea of, like, reclaiming narrative control, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, her silence, coupled with these really bold fashion choices, it forces us to confront our own assumptions about female sexuality and agency and the role of women in the public eye.
Right.
She's not giving us easy answers, but she's definitely starting a conversation.
Right. It's like she's holding up a mirror to society.
Yeah.
Like, forcing us to examine our own biases and, like, these preconceived notions that we have.
It's interesting to think about it in the context of Kanye's career, too.
Why? Yeah, right.
Because he's always courted controversy.
Yeah.
And built his empire on challenging the status quo.
Right.
So, this Grammys appearance could just be seen as a continuation of that.
Yeah.
But now with Censori as, like, a co-creator.
Yeah.
Like a partner in crime.
Right, right.
Blurring those lines between their personal and professional lives.
Yeah.
And turning their relationship into this, like, performance art piece that's playing out on a global stage.
But it also raises all these questions about the power dynamics.
Absolutely.
Because he has this long history of controlling the narrative, like dictating the terms of engagement.
Yeah.
So is Censori truly an equal partner in all of this?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Like, without hearing from her directly.
Yeah.
We don't really know for sure.
Right.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that even within a potentially, like, imbalanced power dynamic.
Yeah.
Individuals can still assert their agency.
Right, right.
Like, they can find ways to subvert those expectations and carve out their own space for self-expression.
Yeah, and maybe that's exactly what she's doing.
It's possible.
Like, maybe her silence is not just a rejection of the media's narrative, but it's also, like, a quiet rebellion against any assumptions about her role in this whole partnership.
Right.
Like, she's playing a more subtle game.
Yeah.
Like, one that operates beneath the surface of, like, all the spectacle and everything. And it challenges us to look beyond the obvious and consider, like, all the complexities of her individual identity.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to solve this puzzle, but, like, we don't have all the pieces.
Right.
We have these glimpses into her life, like her background, her actions and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's this, like, essential part of her that remains, like, hidden,
Yeah.
inaccessible, and I think that's what makes her so captivating.
Absolutely. It's like she's inviting us into this conversation.
Yeah.
But she's refusing to give us all the answers.
Right. Right.
So it forces us to engage more actively, think critically, and question our assumptions,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely like a refreshing change from the typical like celebrity narrative.
Totally.
Where everything's just like laid bare for public consumption.
Right. It's all out there.
Yeah, and I think in a way it makes the Grammys appearance even more powerful.
It does.
Because it becomes less about the outfit itself.
Right.
And more about, like, the questions it raises and, like, the conversations it sparks.
Yeah, it's a statement that goes way beyond fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a commentary on celebrity culture and the media and, like, the way they're obsessed with image.
Right.
And, those power dynamics between men and women.
Yeah.
Like, it's playing out on this huge stage.
It's a brilliant strategy.
Whether it was intentional or not.
Yeah.
It really turns the tables, and it shifts the focus away from the spectacle and onto the meaning.
Right.
And it leaves this lasting impression.
Yeah.
Like, long after that initial shock value has faded.
So, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive,
yeah,
I'm curious to hear your final thoughts. Like, what do you think is the most significant takeaway from this whole Censori saga?
I think the biggest thing is that there's always more to the story than what we see on the surface.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We live in this world of instant judgments and snap opinions and just like surface level interpretations.
Right.
But her appearance at the Grammys.
Yeah.
It forces us to dig deeper, to resist that urge to just like categorize and label people.
Right.
And acknowledge how complex a person's experience really is.
Yeah. Well said. It's a good reminder that even in this age where like everyone's oversharing,
right,
there's still room for mystery, for ambiguity, for the power of the unsaid.
I like that. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes Bianca Censori such a fascinating person.
For sure.
She's like this puzzle that we may never fully solve.
Right.
But like the act of trying to understand her and grappling with your contradictions, that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. And maybe that's the whole point of art,
Yeah.
To provoke thought, challenge perceptions, and leave us with more questions than answers.
Right.
And in that sense, she and Kanye, they've created a masterpiece.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mystery of Bianca Censori.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.